Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Great Metamorphosis. We have a great program ahead of us today, so you're going to be hearing some very, very enlightening insights about the industry and where it's headed. I want to ask you for a couple of housekeeping items, if we may. To begin with, please mute all sound and video at your end. We still get some people who sneak in from time to time. So if you see yourself on the screen, hit the mute button so that we don't see you. The only two people who should be on screen at this point are the speaker, the presenter, Mark Mclaughlin, and myself. You have a chat button at the bottom of your screen. Feel free at any time to submit a question. I try to sort of scan those as we're going through the conversation, and if we can respond to them, we certainly try to do so before the end of the program. And again, I want to remind you, I know that everybody on the screen today is a realtor. I know that you get called away at the 11th hour with client demands and contractual issues, whatever the case may be. We will be recording today. We are recording as we're going right now, and we'll be sending you out a link via Eventbrite at the end of the session, early afternoon. So, why today's program? Very simply, we're seeing a lot now being written about the great retirement, the great migration, the great resignation, the great everything. So that's the reason why we've entitled this the Great Metamorphosis. The theory is that there's sort of been a tried and proven Velcro approach to how we conduct real estate transactions in the marketplace. We gain the listing, we hold the open house, we conduct the broker's tour, and we wait for the buyers to emerge. And if you've got a buoyant market, as you do in the Bay Area, it's even better still because you get multiple offers, and all you have to do is take the offers and deal with them. So the theory coming forward is that perhaps there's a new beast at play that really talks about a proactive approach to the marketing of properties and to how real estate will be done going forward. We're very lucky today to have two esteemed presenters. One is Mark Mclaughlin, former chief real estate strategist at Compass. Many of you will know Mark from Compass and from his days at Pacific Union prior to Compass. He's now a serial entrepreneur and futurist. And joining us very soon will also be Tracy Velcro. She's also on another Zoom call for Real Trends. But Tracy is the editorial director of Real Trends. She'll be joining me on the screen at some point in the next 10, 15 minutes. And both of us will be sort of putting Mark through the grilling routine, if you will. So without any further ado, Mark, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you. And just before we get into the questions, can you sort of update us on your professional career? What's happened in the last 6 months or so?
Yes, good morning from Jackson, Wyoming. Pleasure to be here, Alf, and looking forward to having Tracy join us as well. As most in the Bay Area know, we sold Pacific Union to Compass in September of 2018, and then I retired from Compass at September 30th of 2021 as the chief real estate strategist. I stepped back into a business that I've had for 20 years. It's called Mclaughlin Ventures, and it's where I do investing and consulting and things like that. And in the last 4 months, I have made investments in two different companies. One's an AI company, which I sit on the board of, and the other is a real estate technology company, which will launch here probably in the next 60 to 90 days. And I invested in that and will also sit on the board. So I have kind of put my money where my mouth is in terms of where I see the industry going. I also do some consultative work with one of the largest lenders, independent mortgage lenders in the United States, on sort of a consumer direct strategy, which I think Tracy's going to encourage us to reflect on, as well as some consulting with various brokerage companies across the country. So that's about all of it from here in Jackson. Excellent.
And Tracy, you're on mute right now, but Tracy Velcro, from the editorial director of Real Trends, welcome to the program, Tracy. Glad to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Mark, let me kick this off, and Tracy, just dive in with me at any point. This is a free-for-all today, if you will, said politely and nicely. Mark, let's go back and get an understanding of just today's realtor before we move into where the realtor is headed. What's your perception? Is it still an opportunistic career? Is it a rewarding career? Would you advise your own sons and daughters to get into this business as realtors? What's the profession like today?
That's a trick question, Alf, because I do have 3 kids from 22 to 28, and none of them are in real estate. I think they've seen how hard their mom and dad work, and they're going to try and do it a different way. But of course, it's still a very opportunistic industry. It's one that's changing rapidly. It's one that all of you on the line here today know you have worked harder in the last 24 months than you have probably ever worked in your life. In the beginning of COVID, it was a scare, and then it turned out to be a gift. But you were forced to work in ways that you had never worked before. We had all relied on relationships as the keystone of our business and the trust that you have in clients. And we were really forced into a situation where we couldn't do it via interpersonal communication, meaning face-to-face. We had to do it different ways to keep earning that trust. The realtor count in the United States, I think, swelled to 2 million. During COVID, I think there was a headline early in January that there were more real estate professionals in the business than there were homes for sale. But my view going forward is the good will become great because you have the work ethic and the attention to detail and the trust of the client, and the marginal may fade. So I would think we will see a consolidation of that 2 million number down, maybe to 1.6 million over the coming 24 to 36 months.
Yeah, I actually think it's a great opportunity right now. I think that agents have so many choices in types of business models that they want to choose, and different companies to join, as far as the choice is concerned. So I would agree with you, Mark, but I would also say that there are so many choices out there for the right person. So
yep, plenty of different business models too.
Mark, traditionally, though, we hear a lot of discussion about how hard it is now to become to be middle class in this country anymore, or upper middle class. One has the impression that in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, you got your license, and if you were a self-starter and if you had an entrepreneurial itch, you could be very successful in real estate, and if you worked hard, you could be a top producer. Are you guaranteed of that same path nowadays?
I don't think that guarantee is available today. I think the work ethic, most people from the outside look into our industry and say, look at those big tickets, look at the big paychecks, and I'm going to go do this because I know a few people and I've bought a home. But the professionals on this phone that are truly gifted at what they do have skill sets of attention to detail, perfectionism to that point, a little bit of ADD, and they're all probably either AA or AAA battery type personalities. And unless you have those 3 attributes, you're just going to have to work harder than anybody else to get the same context in your profession.
Tracy, you talk to a lot of brokerages, a lot of agents, a lot of brokers as well. How would you define the profile of somebody who can be successful as a realtor?
Oh gosh, academic qualifications, I don't necessarily think you have to have, but I do think you have to have be business focused. You have to understand what you need to do to build and grow your company per se, even just as an individual agent or as a team. So business smarts are essential, I think, today. I'm seeing that a lot in some of the younger folks who are joining in real estate and becoming very successful very quickly. They know how to market themselves, for sure. That's a big one. But they also have a plan for where they want their growth to come from and how they want to get to it.
What would you add?
I love your emphasis, Tracy, on you're running a business, and I think it is that is prevalent today like it hasn't been in the last 5 years. Is that you have to run your business, you have to invest in your business, you have to surround yourself with the absolute best people in order to keep up.
Definitely.
So, Mark, this is a segue question as to the direction we're heading in today, but this is a volatile real estate market today, and it's going to become even more volatile given what's about to happen with interest rates, discussions of inflation, war, et cetera, et cetera. What are the sand traps or the quicksand pits out there right now for realtors, as far as you can see, for today's current realtor?
Yeah, I think my answer to that is very similar today as it was 5 years ago, is that in any market that we're going to be confronted with tremendous noise. And any business, whether it be a real estate practitioner or any other business, has to have the ability to manage through the noise. We don't control inflation, we don't control interest rates, we definitely don't control war, but we do control how we engage with our clients and where we prioritize them and how we communicate with them. So if interest rates and inflation are going to be prevalent on a consumer's mind, then the real estate professional needs to communicate what the implications of that are on the home buying or selling process. Like if interest rates go up, obviously the buying pool for that specific property goes down because the affordability index. One of the beautiful things about COVID is if you're looking to buy a home for $1.2 million or $1.8 million, and you have the flexibility to work wherever you want, you can cross geographic boundaries that you were never able to do before.
Tracy, anything to add to that?
No, I don't really have anything to add to that. I think you pretty much said it all. I think that we still are in for a great market this year, despite all of the, inflation and rising prices and that. So.
Okay. Mark, back to you. I use the analogy of Velcro at the front end. It was essentially, you get the analogy. Was I right? Is that the way we've done business? It's sort of a reactive posture. Get the listing, put it out there, open house, buyers, contract, done.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody doesn't understand what he means by Velcro, it's one message fits all consumers. You just throw it up against the wall and see what sticks.
Tracy, in agreement as well?
That's the traditional approach,
yes.
Definitely. And I definitely think that is out of date. And it's why a lot of these younger realtors are becoming so successful so quickly. And it's not just younger, it's a lot of new to the business as well. I say younger, but I also mean new to the business who maybe came from a different profession. They've figured out how to really target and hone in on who they're targeting and adopt an approach that reaches that person or that demographic or whatever it is. So
absolutely.
So Mark, build on that. If we say then the traditional model has essentially been a reactive model, what's the new model going to look like? And let's stay at 30,000 feet because we'll drill down into the specifics. But what does the new model look like in summary? And what does the new realtor begin to look like in reaction to that change?
Yes, I probably will quote now a gentleman who's become a friend of mine by the name of Brian Solis, who, Alf, you recognize, you introduced me to him in 2016, and he is a digital anthropologist. And his vision for our industry is to thrive 4 or 5 years from now. One will need to embrace automation, and I'll come back to that, and AI. And both of those things are going to be targeted at moving away from the Velcro and moving into the one-to-one communication. So automation means automating the routine and mundane. And you all know in your businesses what parts of your day are dedicated to the mundane and routine. You may have an assistant or somebody doing those for you, but we're going to have to automate those to be efficient, because the pace of work that we have acclimated to in COVID is not going to change because the masks come off. We have established consumers' expectations, and the AI component on your CRM is going to have to empower you which phone calls to make to whom and when. So, like for instance, I'm 62 years old. My youngest kid is 22. I moved out to Wyoming. So how many other people in the neighborhood that I came from fit my exact same demographic? So when I communicate with them, I need to communicate exactly, and hey, you might be considering an empty nester move, or you might be considering something like that. Those types of things, as opposed to my newsletter going to everyone, will be very much parts of success of the real estate profession of the future.
So before we get into what gets automated, let me ask you the question, what does not get automated?
I think that the single greatest asset that a real estate professional has with their client, and I just hope everybody will listen to this, is trust. Okay, there isn't a .com, a hashtag, or an @ symbol that can replace the trust that a client has in you as a professional. All right, now the client controls that loyalty card, right? They control that loyalty card, and they can shift their trust and loyalty to someone else anytime they want. But that trust needs to be maintained, even if it's through a Zoom call, much less a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, whatever. That relationship and trust should be everything that the real estate professional does.
20. I bet today.
Tracy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the single most important thing is the relationship, and just like you said, the trust. And that I don't think will ever change in real estate. Real estate is always going to be a relational business. It's always going to be a one-on-one. It's always going to be a hyper local. You know, how can I build this deep relationship with someone so that they keep coming back to me or keep doing business with me? And that's the one thing that technology can help you do, but it can never replace.
Yeah.
Mark, I want to go ahead. Sorry.
To expand on one thing, one method of eroding trust and eroding a relationship would be to send the same message to 1,000 people, because those 1,000 people probably have 700 different demographic needs and backgrounds.
So let me start to drill down, and Tracy, help me here as well as I do this, because your perspective is important to me on all of these. Let's go from trust and come back to this traditional loyalty relationship between realtor and client. Whenever I talk to realtors, they say we will never disappear, unlike travel agents, because we have the relationship. Is that relationship eroding, Mark? Is it at risk of eroding, particularly as you've got all the boomers like me with the white hair who are on our way to the cemetery plot, and you've got millennials and Gen X's and Gen Y's and Gen Z's who don't have that same degree of relationship trust? Comment.
Yeah. So I've been dealing with the disintermediation phenomena since my days at LoopNet back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so I do not believe that our industry is going to be disintermediated. However, one of the greatest inertias in our business today that is surrounding you that you may not see is every financial services business in the nation is chasing your client on a consumer direct basis. So the relationships that you have, there are multiple different companies that are out there trying to displace your relationship so that they own the client's trust. And so you have to be cognizant of these synthetic lenders, insurance companies, mortgage companies. I mean, if you think about the consumer direct inertia that's going on right now, look at where the Super Bowl is being hosted in SoFi Stadium, and Rocket Mortgage is going to spend $20 million on commercials in the Super Bowl. Consumer direct. Therefore, whatever the consumer wants, an entrepreneur is going to give to them. So you can say, I'm not sure I need all this technology that keeps getting pushed my way. However, if your clients want it and your clients are embracing it, then you're going to have to embrace it. Like Rocket wants to put an app on every single consumer's phone about the mortgage process. And they're willing to embrace a real estate professional with it as well. LendUS is doing the same thing. Loan Depot is doing the same thing. So you can say, I don't really need that. I don't need these synthetic products, but you have to be a conduit for information, for trusted information to your client about what's going on around you in the industry.
Well, and they're taking it one step further as well. I mean, Rocket has its own real estate division of salaried real estate agents. And the reason they're doing that is because they want what the real estate agents can do for them, which is build the relationships to keep people coming back and using their services.
Sure.
And I think Better is doing it. Rocket's doing it, quite a few. And you know, Real Trends just did our first agent pulse survey. We do a broker pulse survey. We talk a little bit about the market, but we also talk about some issues that are relevant to the industry at that moment. It's a quarterly survey. And one of the questions I asked was, are you using any of the consumer financial services? Are you offering them to your buyers and sellers, such as cash offers or bridge loans or anything like that? And I mentioned several companies, Ribbon, Knock, Easy Knock. And right now it sits at 85% of the agents who answered the survey either had no idea, they weren't in their market, which is understandable then, or they are very against offering those options to their consumers. But the consumers are asking for these things. They might not use them, but they want to know they have options.
They can
And
access.
it's for you to know and understand what those options are.
Yeah,
So Mark, to both of you then, is there a risk that we're at a tipping point where these online, the rocket mortgages, et cetera, can erode that relationship hold that the traditional realtor had on the traditional client?
I'll answer that one first. I mean, my thing is right now, no, I think they work as different teams. So what they want and how they're going about it are two different things. So you have, as I understand it, with Rocket, you have a team. So you have one person listing, one person showing, one person doing the open house. You have one person handling the transaction. So they don't have one person who is taking charge of the entire transaction. So you're dealing with multiple people with any transaction, and not one person that is your go-to person that you're building the relationship with.
Can they do that? Can they put it all in one person's hand?
I mean, they
Eventually.
haven't, but
no. And so I agree with Tracy, Alf, that I think the answer is no, but. And you have to remember that a lot of these trends that we're talking about are national in nature. We have a ferocious national housing market. And in coastal California, where you are sitting in the eye of the martini glass, okay? And we're not gonna displace the relationship-based advice that comes with trust with an app, especially in a housing market that has an average price today, you know, in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's gotta be $1.8 million. I don't know it for a fact.
1.7.
1.7. And we don't have a homogeneous housing stock, right? So you can never compare this 4-bedroom, 3-bath house to that one. You can in Stockton, you can in Dallas, you can in Phoenix, but these are just trends that the consumer's expectations are being established by. And if you don't today, just take a morning out of your week and turn CNBC on and watch the commercials. I think 30% of the commercials on CNBC are real estate, and they're going right over our heads, straight to the consumer. And anything you want a mortgage, you want insurance, you want a real estate agent. It's coming our way, and so therefore your clients are exposed to it. And again, the consumer's going to get whatever the consumer wants, basically because an entrepreneur is going to give it to them.
And stay with that. If in fact they're coming over our heads with this bombardment, what do we as individual realtors do? Forget the brokerage for a moment. What do I as a practicing realtor do to combat that?
It's like the difference between a boxer and a wrestler. We can't get in the room and try and beat up all these new entities that are trying to come at us. You got to use their momentum and roll with it. So if your clients don't know anything about these synthetic mortgages that help you become a cash buyer, or the bridge loan, or the takeout financing, then partner with someone in your marketplace and just put together a piece that can educate them. If they're looking for a real estate professional in another community because they're thinking about the Great Migration, you all do this very, very well. Just do it in a more elegant way. Do some research on that individual and make sure it fits the demographic need and want of your client before you put them together. Again, sort of a one-to-one relationship rather than, oh, somebody told me just to connect them with Mark in Dallas. You know, be more diligent than that.
So let's get into this technology issue. I want to get into some specifics here. And we're playing with AI, we're playing with CRM. It's the whole gestalt. Starting with you, Mark, what are the major predicted innovations? What are you seeing right now? I mean, I'm of the theory that it's certainly at the high end. We're not talking about, anything under 1.5, sort of in San Francisco. But if you're selling a $5 to $10 to $15 million property, you can in fact proactively identify who those targets are for you on a one-to-one basis. Go talk to them one-to-one and sign them up and lock them in. Is it that clear? What technology innovations are coming down through AI and CRM that would enable that to happen?
Sure, there are plenty of AI tools out there that permit you to run a search based on not only a property's attributes, but the demographic of the buyer or the seller, and come up with a list of names that might be appropriate for that. I'll reverse the example a little bit. You have all received multiple offers on many of your listings. Let's just say you got 5 on one property and it's sold. Well, there are tools out there that give you the ability to go and go into the same zip code, profile the seller and the seller's property, and it will serve up to you a number of choices of people who fit the demographic of the seller and the physical attributes of the property. Now go to those people saying, I have 4 other buyers for a home that has a pool on 1.5 acres in your zip code with 4 bedrooms. That is available at our fingertips today. And that, there's Chris Goff just put out his, he's the prop tech, by far gold standard investment banker. He just put out his annual report, and there's $20 billion that was invested into property technology in 2021. Most of it is focused on reducing the friction in a transaction. And you all know, if you want to think about what friction is, it's a stack of paperwork. It's a process with the lender, the escrow officer, the title officer, the insurance officer, your escrow coordinator. They're trying to reduce that friction. If that money can reduce the friction, it will increase the velocity of a trade. If you can increase the velocity of trade in real estate, it actually brings liquidity to an asset class that is not liquid. That will create value. So that is on, you said 30,000 feet. From 30,000 feet, that's where this money is going.
Can you be specific as to the names of the companies that are offering these services or these products, Mark?
Well, so whatever CRM you use probably has an AI component to it. I know Chime does, I know the Compass CRM does. They probably all have an element to it, but there's the company that I'm involved with is by the way Identified. They're in Connecticut. There's a company called Likely.ai in one of the Carolinas that does the same sort of thing. So these tools are all out there. Generally speaking, the first thing to do is run your CRM, your names, through this AI engine to enhance the fields. And what do I mean by enhancing the fields? Well, if I'm your client, you know my name, you know my mobile number, you've got my email address, you probably know I have 3 kids and you may or may not know their names. Well, if you run those 3 attributes, name, phone number, email address, through appropriate AI databases, they'll come back and append 100 different attributes to it. Where I went to school, where do my sisters live? What boards do I sit on? And all of a sudden you have this expanded view of your client that maybe you didn't have before. So when that referral comes up that Mark is moving to Wyoming, and you go to Wyoming to look for a real estate professional and you find one that went to the University of California at Berkeley, you might have a match, right? So that's automating the mundane and the routine.
If I go through the algorithm, and if I use AI and I get back a list that says, these are likely sellers, these are people who are likely to sell, how perfected is that technology? How reliable is it? Am I running the risk of wasting a lot of time?
I'm going to say on a 1 to 10, it's going to be between a 5 and a 6. But that's going to be a lot more effective than the current state. And the other thing I want to point out is most of the people on this call are probably the rainmaker of their operation. And this is not a task that you should be doing. This is a task that your staff or your assistant should be automating, and then you say to them, I want a mailing list that looks like this. I want every 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in my zip code, and and give me that mailing list. Now that mailing list may only be 82 people, but they're the right 82 people. Right. It's the difference between the Velcro and the 1-to-1.
Tracy, anything to add to that before I? Go back to,
and I think one of the ones that I've heard of too is Remine. It's more property, I think.
how do you spell that? I'm sorry.
REMINE. And
Mhm.
then I think it's Cole Realty Services or Cole Property Services. They also provide that data. I'm not sure if it's individual or more property related, but and I think RPR, the Realtor Property Resource, also has, and I think that's more property related. But that information, I know a lot of realtors who are using that to like you said, determine what other properties in the neighborhood some of their buyers might fit their profile and go after those, even if they're not for sale. So
Yeah, any CRM company that you're using, if they don't have a current track of AI enablement, you might need a new CRM.
yeah.
Okay. Mark, stay with technology and innovation. Just one more time. What else do you see? Anything else interesting and exciting coming out of the pipeline?
I don't see a particular product, and that's not really what I do. I try and stay at 30,000 feet, but I will point out some research that I've recently read. Alf and Tracy, we talked about this the other day, that NAR put out research in, I think, June on the future role of technology in our industry. And then McKinsey put out research on technology about 3 or 4 months later. And the story that I want you to capture in your mind is kind of going back to Henry Ford going to the farmer and saying, what kind of a horse do you want for the future? And the farmer said, a faster horse. Well, when you look at the research from NAR and what are going to be the most valuable technology tools for you in the future, I think number 1 was the digital signature and number 2 was a drone. Well, both of those technologies are used when you already have secured the client. Those aren't the ones that are going to get you to grow your market share, grow your practice, grow your business. But we asked the farmer, what do you want? And they said, I want a faster horse. The McKinsey research said that starting in 2021, those companies to start investing in AI early, it's going to be expensive for a couple of years, but then coming into the year 24 and 25, they're going to outperform others by a margin of 50%, 5-0. Okay, so that goes back to what Tracy said earlier about managing your business. It's not about a particular technology tool. It's about an approach to invest in the future.
Okay. I've got a couple of quick questions here. By the way, yes, to folks on the, I've had a couple of questions about are we recording? Yes, we are recording this program. You'll get a link later on today. Tracy, Mark, would you recommend a gold standard for a CRM system for an independent realtor who's on the call today or somebody who wants something better? Mark? What would you recommend?
Yeah, to be honest, Alf, I'm not close enough to do that.
That's
yeah.
Tracy?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. I don't know either, but I thought I would ask the question. Let us go on, if we can, please, to brokerage consolidation. We've certainly seen, Mark, what's happened with Compass in the Bay Area with its acquisition spree. We're seeing it at the corporate level with Reality, et cetera. Do we see the industry at a brokerage level becoming more and more compressed and more consolidated? To both of you, Tracy, let me start with you.
Sure. I think we're going to find that we're not going to have a lot of large independent brokerages to purchase at some point. But there right now, I know that there are a handful of companies really actively pursuing M&A, which is Berkshire. Compass says it's not really a big part of their strategy. That's when I interviewed Robert, that's what he told me, but I do know that they are pretty active in M&A. But we also have a lot of private equity coming into real estate. So you've got different models like Peerage and Karen Real Estate who are purchasing. I can't remember which one. I think it's Peerage purchases it buys out the company, and then Karen, or maybe it's the opposite. They'll buy a percentage of the business to build the growth. So there is a lot of consolidation. I know in talking to Steve Murray that he is very, very active right now on the M&A front. as far as, are we going to see a huge wave of consolidations that's going to consolidate market share? I don't see that right now. I mean, I think I said this on the last call that we had, but of the 500 top brokers that we have in our rankings, they actually represent 38% of the market share in the country, which is pretty low if you think about the companies who are involved in the 500. So I think it's going to be, it'll be interesting how it plays out, but you know, you only have so many business models that can acquire a similar business model. You know, it's hard for a company, you know, a traditional company to acquire 100%. You know, so we'll see how that all plays out. But that's what I'm seeing right now as far as the consolidation of brokerages.
Mark, when I look at our own database, we have a very significant realtor database developed over 17 years now, and I just see the movement of the same agent from here to here to here to here, and so much of it is through acquisition and consolidation. Let's assume that consolidation is here to stay in one form or another. What does that mean for the realtor? What should the realtor be thinking about, the realtor who wants to stay in this business and continue a growth path?
Yeah, so but first of all, I agree with Tracy's perspective that the national roll-up is probably coming close to completion. I don't know how much further we can go, and there are probably 5 different sort of private equity firms buying businesses and not changing their names and keeping the people, you know, motivated and things like that. But I think the 2 most important things that real estate professionals look for in where am I going to work is first a vision for the future, and second, a sense of community. Is that, you know, where am I going to feel like I'm getting value, and the path going forward is appropriate. So to the point of so many different business models, we have all kinds of different business models in this business, but yet real estate remains local. It remains local in an intense way. And I might see coming a resurgence of the regional boutique, where there's this tremendous market share in these very, very large companies. But if I just want to focus on a certain area, like, you know, the South Bay or the North Bay, can I run the best boutique possible and be very successful there? The answer is yes. You know, if you know what your brand stands for and you can deliver vision to people and you can deliver a sense of community where people will thrive, then yeah, you could have a very successful business, and it doesn't have to be national. As
a boutique brokerage or a boutique team within a brokerage? Or both?
Wow, that's a dicey question. Teams are definitely, Tracy's going to know this way better than I do, but teams are definitely on the rise. So once they get to a certain point, the brokerage and the team almost become interchangeable. I believe that because I believe that once you get over 8 to 10 members on your team, you have to transition to being in the people business, or you need to hire someone to be in the people business so you can keep selling real estate. But you can't run a 24-person team and sell real estate. There's inherent conflicts, there's distractions and things like that. But so if somebody's running a team, they have to be cognizant of that, is that how do I resource around myself? But the team inertia is huge.
But yeah, irrespective of the format, you think you can carve out space for yourself in a galactic marketplace?
Well, look at the side model. You know, that's a perfect example of, you know, I think they have if I'm not mistaken, they have almost 100 unique boutique brands in the state of California. I could be off by a factor of 2 there, but you know, then you've got Avenue 8 coming. I mean, if you look at the matrix of business models in the brokerage business, and you start on one end, which is maybe technology enabled, real estate agent centric, and you go to the other end, which is you know, I'm a consumer advocate, and one is Compass and the other is Redfin. In between that, there are 10 or 8 to 10 different positions that you can compete from. And if you have passion about your brand and it resonates with professionals, you're going to attract the same like-minded people to your organization.
Okay. We're at the 20-minute mark here, folks. Time goes very quick. So with 20 minutes to go, I want to continue ripping through. Tracy, I want to start with you on this. The whole issue, and you've been very strong on featuring and covering this area. The growth of sort of the discount brokerages. what does that mean for the rest of us? What does it do to commissions? I think I saw a blog post you ran this week or last where you said commissions now are under 5% nationally, four and change. What's the impact of the discount brokerages?
I mean, Redfin is the only discount brokerage in our top 500 of the real estate brokerages. But as far as the commission rate and the drop, it's been happening for years. And it really, we don't think, and by we, I mean Steve Murray and I, and looking at the data, we don't think it's because of the discount model at all. It's because of the competition. And in fact, I wrote a story on this, and I had several brokers reach out, and they said that their biggest issue is either the new agents or the listing agents just desperate to get the listing, willing to cut their commission, or the new agents just desperate for business, trying to figure out a way to do it. But it's really competition in the marketplace that's driving commissions down, and it is down. I think it's 4.94. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's down 4.94% from a high of 5 point something. Let me see if I can find it, because I do think it's interesting. I can pull it up really quickly. So Redfin looked at buy side commissions, and they said they're down to 2.63% from 2.69% a year earlier. So we track that on a total gross commission side, and right now this year, or actually 2021, it was 4.94%, and that is down from 5.4% in 2012. So if Redfin's numbers are accurate, that means the listing side is down to 2.3%. So yeah.
So Tracy, my question still is though, are we going to see, at a bare minimum, they're muddying the water? Are we going to see more of these discount brokers coming to the marketplace? And what does that mean for me as a realtor who's trying to do business the other way?
I mean, I don't see huge growth in the discount brokerage model right now. I do see, there are what I see more of a movement toward is this whole platform, building a platform to streamline the transaction, which I know is a completely different subject. But as far as the discount brokers, I mean, I think it's all in how you present yourself. I know one realtor who literally breaks it down by what she has to pay, what her commission goes to, and she has a pie chart that she shows the sellers and goes through with them. If I were to cut that, I wouldn't be able to pay this bill, and it actually is really effective for her. But I think just you really need to prove your value, show your value. As far as the discount broker being a competitor to you, I think that there's a certain buyer or seller that chooses that. And it's generally not a luxury buyer or seller. So I think that, I don't know. I don't think that it's a huge issue at this point. Mark, you might have a different take.
Mark, yeah, your feelings, Mark.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you, Tracy, and I'll offer two comments. I'll bet 25% of the people on this phone work for 3%, not a nickel less. And I think the consumer has voted with their checkbook for a decade that they value advice over discount.
But they're getting cheaper everywhere else, Mark. They're getting discounts everywhere else. The movement is towards paying less, whether you're buying at Walmart or you're buying at the auto dealer. Well, why should we buck the trend?
I totally agree with you. However, our average client is probably acquiring or selling a home every 5 to 7 years. They're not schooled at it like they're schooled at negotiating for consumables. And it still remains a very complex transaction. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest sources of value that a real estate professional can bring to a client is the list price of this house is X, but I think we can do it for Y. Y might be 10% over or 10% less, right? Or if you really like this house, this person down the street is getting ready to sell. Why don't we go there and preempt that? Now, in this market, people would pay for that. They'll pay for that advice. And so I think this whole NAR thing about being transparent about the fees, bring it on. Let's be transparent, because everybody knows when they go to buy a Mercedes that somebody's getting paid. They just don't know how much, right? And so let's show it. And if you're 3% and your competitor is 2.48 or something, Tracy, then you're going to have to explain the 60 basis points different.
So, Mark, how do I justify my 5% or my 6%? How do I justify that? How do I justify it? Is it concierge services? Because I'm not in agreement with you that good old faithful relationship as trust is going to maintain the 6% or the 5%. Prove it to me.
Yeah, well, what I would do then is I would go back to draw analogies or stories about my last 6 transactions. And in these last 6 trades, here's the value, quantitative value that I provided to my client, and compare it to the fee. Okay, so it's easy to go like a heat-seeking missile to 6%, but what about the 94%? And what did I do for my client to earn that piece? First of all, half of it went to the buyer's agent. They need to know that. So now it's down to the other part. But you have to be able to articulate, like I've coached so many of our people for so often. Don't send out a just sold postcard saying room count, address, price. It's publicly available everywhere. Send out the story of what you did for your client and use facts. The client was in a hurry. The client was patient. The client wanted this. I negotiated this. You have to be able to articulate that value and somehow turn it into a dollar sign or a number.
Mark, does the agent become a true, authentic one-stop shop? I can provide you with the remodel, the staging, the this, the that, the everything, cradle to grave, including financing. Does it come to that point?
Absolutely.
What's the ramification for the brokerage then?
Well, the real estate professional has been doing that for years. I see Carrie Condi on this call, and Carrie's list is way more valuable than Angie's list, right? Angie's list, the list.
Right.
That list is nails to a client, because number one, when the real estate professional calls the painter or calls the roofer, you move to the top of the stack, right? You don't get to the back of the line, you go to the front of the line. So they've been doing that for years and years. However, what's different today is now there are programs where the brokerage company will put up the cash and collect it on either a modest fee basis or no fee basis at closing. That's pretty attractive to a consumer.
Well, and not only that, from a brokerage level, the one-stop shop, gosh, that's how long has that been talked about? But, it's happening not just mortgage insurance, it's happening with concierge, it's happening with joining a service like Move Guru that offers discounted moving and setting up your utilities. And that's at the brokerage level. And basically they're able to offer consumers discounts by using this one-stop service that an agent can sell that without cutting their commission.
Good point.
Saving out their ends.
Stacey, iBuying, you wrote about iBuying the last couple of months. Is it decline, given what happened to Zillow? Do we think that pressure is off on that particular trend?
It's really interesting. I just interviewed Errol Samuelson from Zillow an hour ago. And he explained why Zillow got out of iBuying. I think it's been written about a lot, but it's the price forecasting volatility. It's not forecasting the price a week away or 2 weeks away. It's forecasting it out 5 or 6 months by the time that they want to turn this property around. And we're in a market right now where home prices are just escalating, and there's really no end in sight at this point. I've heard, I interviewed Ryan Serhant. He's like, iBuyers are dead. I've interviewed, to me, I don't think iBuying is dead. I think that as a service offered, that it can be another option for your clients. Whether a company that solely does iBuying is going to, it's a low margin business. So if they're only doing iBuying, it's going to be, I think personally, it's going to be hard to keep that profitable through, well, I don't know how many of them have been profitable yet, but I think one, through all different markets. But I think if you're offering it as like Realogy offers their Realtor, if you're offering it through that way, that I think it will stay as an option for consumers.
Mark?
So I agree with Tracy for sure. I don't think it's going away, but think about this. And this is, I'm working with Lend US, a lender on this right now, is why can't I be an iBuyer? Like, I happen to bank with First Republic. They know absolutely everything about me. They know when Grace's tuition is due. They know everything about me. Why can't they make me an iBuyer? And every lender will say, well, because this, and that. But if we go back to this $20 billion that's being invested to reduce friction, one of the sources of friction is the lending process. But if I have a relationship with a bank, why can't they give me a pre-qual letter saying, Mark's qualified to buy this house, period. And I'm now an iBuyer. So I think that's coming in our future. A lot of these programs like Knock and Ribbon and things like that are providing this sort of synthetic way to get to that. Synthetic's probably the wrong word, but I think you all know what I mean. I think, visit with your local lender, ask them if they're working on that. The title insurance is an issue. Okay, but that's friction as well. And all those things are going to be addressed.
Mark, stay with that for a minute. The high-end global financial players, the Goldman Sachs, et cetera, the JP Morgan Chases, and then the hedge funds, the guys who've got all the cash, how are they going to get into our business, and what impact will that have upon me as a realtor? I know that's a galactic question, but I want to understand what their impact's going to be 10 years down the road. Will they hurt us or help us?
Well, if you've ever owned a brokerage business, I'm not sure those big boys want to own them. It's not a simple business to run, and the margins are not enormous. But I think they see our industry, correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, it's $1.7 trillion a year or something like that. They see it as a huge, huge opportunity. And it's the last of the cottage industries, if you will. I mean, think about how much the real estate professional controls in a transaction. Well, they control it because of the trust thing. I don't want to belabor it, but they're all investing in the Knocks, the Ribbons, all these different platforms to, again, reduce friction, add velocity, and therefore liquidity. And that's how they will do it. I don't think they're going to target the brokerage industry. They're going to target the consumer on a direct basis.
With the end result being what with the consumer? That they own that consumer, or they just make more money from that consumer?
I think there are two things. One, I think people believe that let's use the number 6% is egregious. I think the world thinks that, but we know how hard you all work for your money. And the other thing is if there's a real estate transaction that's going to go on at the average, to your point, 1.7, Alf, instead of just getting the brokerage component, I want the mortgage, I want the insurance. So when the consumer opens their wallet, I want to take it all. Just like think of the cruise ship. You go on a cruise ship, they got you. You're spending all your money with that.
All right. Guys, we're at the 7-minute mark here. I want to just throw in sort of the remaining grab bag, sort of the Fed regulatory restrictions, NAR mandates coming down the pike, long-term economic impacts. We've got interest rates all over the place. That's going to happen in March. Inflation up 7.5% today, or at 7.5. Home inventory shortages all over the place. And then you've got long-term lifestyle trends, migration to the cities, remote work, decline of the middle class, the dying of the boomers, all that. Where does that leave us? Are we a good industry to be in, or do we need to be worried about all the stuff that's percolating out there? Anybody? Mark?
Well, I think it's a great business to be in. I love it most because of the people. And everything you just described is surrounding every business, not just ours. Now, maybe NAR and the Justice Department aren't, but for me, it comes back to managing through the noise. We're still going to sell 6 million homes in the United States this year. 1% of them max are going to be iBuyers. So, understand that, digest it, communicate it to your clients, right? One of the best things you could do about this NAR fear of transparency is start being transparent with your clients. See how it goes. You know, if it's horrible on the first 3 times, then change your approach. But I think your clients are hiring you because they trust your judgment and your negotiating skills.
Your biggest fear in the next 24 months is what, Mark, a la this industry?
My biggest fear is that the people that own the brokerage companies don't get their heads up and look around as to what's going on. They keep their heads down as to what's going on and kind of ignore what's around them. I think you and I talked about that. Tracy and I talked about they got to get their heads up at 30,000 feet. I think one of the reasons that I've enjoyed success is I've never been a real estate agent. I can't tell any of you how to be a great agent, but I have stayed at 30,000 feet moving forward.
Tracy, same question. I gave you that litany of concerns. What stands out most for you as a more than just a common risk?
You know, I don't know that this is a risk. I just think that be prepared for more disruptors to come along, but I think that the disruption is going to come in making the transaction easier and more streamlined rather than trying to disrupt the agent like they've tried to do in the past. You know, don't discount your competition and know what your competition is doing, especially for brokers, but also don't, you know, build your business to what your true core values are and what your culture is, and not to beating the competition at every, you should know what they're doing, but you shouldn't try to emulate everything they're doing or be too concerned about what they're doing, as long as your focus is clear.
And that's
Tracy, I love that. I think that one of my coaching things now in business planning is don't do your business planning based on the real estate professional next door or the brokerage company next door. Do your business planning based on what the consumer wants.
right.
And I'm going to quote Brian Solis one more time because I've learned so much from him. If you're not willing to disrupt yourself, it will be a gift given to you by someone else.
And Mark, just to elaborate, you gave me a comment. I wrote it down. You said consumer expectations for professional services standards are established by every industry, not just comparing one real estate person to another, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Same principle.
Your consumer, your client goes through experiences all the time, whether it's checking a bag with the airline, buying a car, whatever it might be. Their expectations for your service level is established by every industry that they engage with. And an example I'll give you is, since I was 16 years old, I always wanted a Jeep. So last year I bought a Jeep. I get an email from my Jeep every single month telling me the tire pressure, the oil, the gas, any maintenance I need, anything like that. Now, why doesn't my house send me an email? Okay, well, maybe because it wasn't built this year and it doesn't have a warranty, but that's establishing my expectations for what the anniversary. Alf, you said the other day, the anniversary of your recent purchase. Is the real estate agent going to call you?
Never heard, not a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that you're expecting, it's my anniversary, the person that sold me this house, maybe they're going to call me or send me a box of chocolates, but no.
No, I just wanted an email. What it told me was I was not important.
Yeah.
So when I sell that house, guess what?
Yeah.
A final question, both of you. We've got 2 minutes here. I want to leave the realtors on the call with a piece of advice. If you want to be successful from a career perspective, right? You want to be a successful realtor. You want to be a top producing agent. You want some degree of personal satisfaction and balance in your life. And very importantly for independent contractors, which is what we all are, you want to build some wealth for retirement. What's the singular piece of advice you would give our agents on the call today? Mark, we're going to start. No, actually, Tracy, going to start with you. What's the singular piece?
You know, it goes back to what I said earlier, and that is build your business so that rather than a career, you're building a business so that you have something valuable when you are ready to get out, whether that's selling your book of business or selling your team or your brokerage, and figure out what there are certain things that make it more valuable, having systems in place that can be replicated. not, for a team, not having the team leader be the only source of leads for the team, but research that, understand that, and then build your business to that so that you do have something worth selling when you want to get out, or you want to possibly join a team and want to sell your book of business to the team leader. There are different ways of doing it, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
Mark, you've got the final word.
I like what Tracy said, and I'll just add one component of quality of life. It's so important, and agents that I coach, not literally coach, but informally, is like, I could ask every one of you on the phone today, hey, do you want to go to Hawaii with me a week from today? And I'm sure half of the hands would go up. Well, do you realize that for 5 hours you can't use your phone? So why can't you put your phone down on Valentine's Day for 5 hours? Quality of life. Plan in your business planning, plan for quality of life. To Tracy's point, vacation. That means you need to build a business around you that can support you while you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And since work from home has exacerbated that need and that desire, yes?
Yeah. Put some boundaries up. Just have your voicemail say, if this call is coming in after you pick the time, I will be returning it between 8 and 10 tomorrow morning. Like, your clients understand that. Now, if you're in the heat of a deal, maybe you can't do that with that one client.
Mark and Tracy, this has been just great. This is exactly where I wanted us to go today. Thank you very, very much for the candor and the honesty and the authenticity of the comments and the feedback today. I want to thank our good friends at HSBC Bank, Rhonda Munoz, who always looks after us and has money to help you if being in the business that we're in. We are recording this. We have recorded this program. You'll get a link through Eventbrite. Many of you let Eventbrite go into your spam folders. Check in there. Look for the Eventbrite email this afternoon. There'll be a recording link from Zoom, and you'll be able to reprise the conversation today. Mark, thank you very much. Tracy, thank you very much. And great success to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned for the day. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.